All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. Greg LeBuff here with you. I almost forgot what I was doing here. It's been a couple weeks since we put out a podcast. It's been really busy over the last few weeks, but even despite almost forgetting the name of the podcast, I am excited to be here tonight. So we have Dustin Dotery with us. Brad's gone away, so it'll be the two of us tonight. But this actually is going to be a really good one because this podcast idea kind of has come up based off some of the things that we've seen over the last bit of training that we're doing because it's been so busy and stuff. So you're always witnessing new things. So I titled tonight on your market set fail, and I'm just excited to break this one down for everybody. So listen, I'm going to cut to the intro, cut all the bullshit, get back, and start diving into things nice and deep. So hang with us, everybody. Every day I hear more stories of good people being brutally assaulted and murdered by some individual who has a repeat history of violent offenses, drug addiction, and mental health issues, who is free to walk the streets in the same city where I live, work, and where I am raising my two daughters. Well, I'm tired of screaming at the TV, and enough is enough. Throughout history, there have always been men willing to answer the call to the threats against our way of life. Well, today, that threat is right outside our doors, on our streets, in our neighborhoods, on our public transportation system, outside the places we work, and even outside of our children's schools. My new mission is to create and train a group of men that believe in the right to life and value the freedom a man has to protect his life, his family, and his property. I'm Greg LeBuff. Welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. All right, we are back to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. And again, I titled this On Your Market Set Fail. So listen, over the last few weeks, been really busy, really busy, working with a lot of different clients. One of the things that kind of came up that got me thinking about, tonight's subject matter was, we've talked about this, obviously we've referenced aspects of this before, but I have an analogy, and I just kind of want to share the analogy because it'll set up the topic. But often when we're training individuals, I use an analogy of a sidewalk, and I talk about laying down the bricks. So you can put down, 100 or 500 different bricks, but that doesn't make it a sidewalk. It's only once you pour the mortar and that kind of binds those bricks together that you have something that's functional. Like that's something you can walk on, that has stability, whatever it is. It's just an analogy. I mean, you could obviously, build your frames, put in your rebar, all that type of stuff. Just the point is, in self-defense or martial arts training, it is often about collecting the bricks. My instructor used to say to me, it's like people are very fascinated with collecting boulders. And so they want this technique, then that technique from this series or from that. They want the knife techniques, the ground techniques. They just want to collect techniques. Often a collection of techniques or a collection of bricks or boulders is often rewarded and benchmarked through belts, right? You collect this many bricks or this many boulders. You earn this belt because it's accumulation of knowledge. Okay, but when it comes to weaponizing, it is not about the individual bricks. Matter of fact, the argument would be made that what we want to try to do when you're weaponizing somebody and helping to prepare them for facing violence is to give them as few bricks as possible. Because the more bricks you give somebody, the more choice you give them, the more options you give them. And whenever you have options or you have lots of choice, meaning in a violent situation, if bad guy does A, you could do Rolodex of options, B, C, D, E, like you have all these selections and choices. Well, that increases your reaction time. Training is always about decreasing your reaction time. So the bricks should be kept to a minimum, and the majority of the focus should be put on pouring the mortar. It's what binds things together and makes it functional. So let me set up the why I went with on your mark, get set, fail. So on your mark, one of the things with training is I use a term called filler. And so filler to me is all of the things that get lumped in with, self-defense training, martial art training. Let's just stick it to self-defense training. So when people are claiming to teach self-defense, there is a tremendous amount of filler. So this is not the bricks. These aren't the techniques. I'm not talking about somebody prefers to use this brick over that brick, whatever. Okay, I'm talking about not even the mortar, the cement that's going to bind it together. I'm talking about the stuff that gets mixed in with that. So imagine if you're mixing cement. If your ratio, if you put too much water in it, it's not going to set right. If you don't put enough of the concrete mix in it, it's not going to set right. But can you imagine if an additional elements kept getting added into it? And these elements had nothing to do with the creation of cement. So these extra ingredients or elements weren't strengthening the cement. They weren't, whatever it is, it's not contributing to it in any way, shape, or form. They're just being put in there for the sake of being put in there. Okay, so in my opinion, that of course is going to weaken it, or it's just a complete waste of time. So on your mark is individuals that are trained, that have, training. Often the mark is a very set point. Okay, so like a really known point that they're training in. And then get set, individuals actually need to find their mark. So like imagine an actor walking on stage and they have a mark. So they want to walk to their mark and then deliver their monologue or deliver their lines. If they miss the mark, they can fuck up the camera angles, they can fuck up the view of the audience, they can fuck up, the lighting, they can fuck up the sound. If you miss your mark, everything goes to shit. But in combat, there is no mark. Matter of fact, the majority of the marks in combat are absolutely fucking ugly. They're chaotic, they're ugly, they're not set known points. Okay, so I guess it's easiest if I just tell a story. So we're training an individual who has a high level of ground fighting experience. Okay, so very, very, very proficient on the ground, high level belt ranking. And in the middle of training this individual in a real world environment, so training him outdoors where there's terrain changes, there is currently, you go from, concrete to the rock and dirt from leftover from the winter to soggy grass with, molded leaves, trees, just all kinds of the different terrains that you're going to find in the outdoor environment. And then all of a sudden, there's a slip, there's a trip, and there's an inevitable fall. So this unexpected trip and slip ends up with the individual hitting the ground, okay? Not on mark, meaning not in a manner that they've ever trained. And then upon hitting the ground, there is no structure or order. There is no strategy or tactic. It turns into complete anarchy with, the bad guys basically being able to then swarm and overwhelm. And just in that one moment, it was a classic example of on your mark, get set, fail. Because although obviously an individual who has a very high level ranking in a very, very functional art like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has been to the ground thousands, if not tens of thousands of times, but always on the mark so that they could get set and then they could go. But in combat, when it's not on your mark, get set, it's fail. So it's off your mark, get set to fail. Okay, so I don't know. We've talked about this, Dustin, obviously, and stuff like that. So I'll let you throw something downrange on it if you have any initial thoughts, and then otherwise I'll kind of move us to the main points.
Yeah, just one, which actually came to me right off when you said the title, because I'm always waiting for the title to be like, what are we talking about? And when you said it, one of Paul Vunek's quotes, that he shared with you and you've shared with us so many times over the years, is just, you will not rise to your expectations. Sorry, you will not rise to your expectations, but fall to your level of training.
Yeah.
And so, you can use that quote in a lot of different ways. I think in this case, where it hits is people's expectation is that they're training in the right way. So do you know what I mean? It's not a perfect use of this quote because we're not talking about people, fall into their level of training because we're basically saying their training is inadequate. So if anything, maybe their training is, the training is the problem, but so is the expectation in this case. Because you think what you're training is real world applicable to violence, but then you have an experience like this. And I mean, hey, great learning lesson, better to learn in training than in combat. But it's like, yeah, it's like what you think it's going to be. If you don't understand that problem, then your training is going to be wrong. So then not only do you not rise to your expectation, but you fall below your level of training. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, this is why this is such an important thing because like another example here is just over the last few weeks, Obviously, it's springtime in Canada, and so we train outdoors. You know what I mean? And the second that we're outdoors, it's gravel everywhere. It's all the dirt and all the gravel that's left over from the winters and the road cleaning and just all that shit, trash everywhere and stuff like that. When you train in that, the amount of guys that go sliding off concrete through, gravel and it literally looks like, just go to a ski hill and watch people that have never been on skis before, you watch them fumble around, Bambi on ice type things. And you just watch people, they're slipping and sliding and literally they're going everywhere. All of their footwork, all of their angulation, all of their movement, all of their control of range, all of that is impacted. All why? Because they're off their mark, right? And it's like the way you train is the way you fight. Everybody hears that, everybody says that, but very few people do that. And what I also find is that people, even when they say, no, we train outdoors, you train outdoors how often? Well, once or twice a summer. And then what they typically do is it's a beautiful day outside. They go, let's get out of this stuffy old gym. Let's go down to a local park. Everyone takes their shoes and socks off. Well, most people train in bare feet anyhow because they don't train outdoors. They train in their bare feet and they train on nice cut grass and they go around and kick the area and make sure there's no gopher holes and make sure there's nothing in the grass that you might step on and all that type of stuff. So you got this nice little, basically manicured section and that's where you go train. They're not training.
Make sure no trees will get in the way.
Yeah, make sure no trees are in the way. Make sure it's just nice open space and stuff like that. Lots of and that's the problem is like you can't train on gravel or in mud or sand or grass or whatever it is. And most people again when they want to train in the grass, they want to train in the grass when the grass is nice and dry and it's warm and it's sunny out. Nobody when it's raining goes, hey, let's go find some long grass to train in. And it's like, well, that's exactly when you go train in the long grass. Right? Because it is wet and it is fucking, muddy and slippery and slick and all this type of shit. And one of the most interesting things is when we have an individual fall and the first words out of their mouth is, I'm dirty. Like, my hands are dirty, my clothes are dirty. And it's like, yeah, your hands are dirty and your clothes are dirty. Like, yeah, that's okay. Like, that's okay. Like, that shouldn't even registered as a concern. Right? Because you're in a combat situation right now. The body only knows what the brain tells it. So if our brain goes, oh shit, now you're all covered in mud. Now you're all, wet and snow and mud and everything else, then that's your hierarchy of priorities. And that's why tactics aren't happening because you're making tactical decisions every second of every type of encounter. Your strategy should already be in play. Your strategies, remember, another word for strategies is priorities. If you think about somebody in life, you shouldn't have to tell somebody, and an individual should not have to consistently remind themselves of what their priorities are. Because that's your priorities. If someone that says and makes health a priority, you don't have to remind them in the morning to eat right or go to the gym or do their stretching or get their workout in or, go for the walk. Don't take the elevator, take the stairs, whatever the fuck it is, because their health is a priority. So they wake up every day with that value, that priority, very integrated into who they are. So that impacts and guides their decisions. Then throughout the day, you're making tactical decisions. Elevator, stairs. Like you might have done a workout. You might have already gone for a walk. You might have all these things. You might decide then to take the elevator. Or you might make a decision to just double down on your priorities and take the stairs. Those are tactical decisions. In training, if you're training people properly, you're helping them to establish their priorities, which is their strategies. Then you're always allowing training to force them to make decisions. Decision making is a muscle. You have to get good at making decisions. Most people suck at making decisions. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to eat? What do you want to watch? Most people, they hate making decisions, especially when it comes to, high pressure decisions. Most people are like, hey, what do you think? And what do you think? And there's nothing wrong with getting people's opinions, collecting information, then making your decision. I'm just saying that in combat, you are constantly making tactical decisions. So if you're looking at an environment or you're in an environment and, you got 2 or 3 guys that are, blitzing you, as you're scanning in that moment, you're thin slicing the environment. Do you make a decision to go to the gravel or to go to the wet grass, to go between the cars, around the car, between the tables, over the table, like everything is a tactical decision. But if people haven't trained in those environments, then all of their marks, right? That everything that they get set off of is not there. All of that is a fabrication that's happening in a dojo. Just like someone could say a squared range mentality. It's tough to stand on a squared range, you know what I mean, where you got all your little, like your little cattle, holders. To me, it reminds me of a horse race where they get the horse into the chute, and then everybody stands on the squared range, and each guy's got his own little chute, and his target's out in front of him, and he's got the plastic sides, hopefully helping him to keep the barrel down range and all these things, and then they load and shoot and all this stuff. It's tough to be standing in a squared environment like that, sterile environment like that, and then say, well, imagine now if you're shooting around a car, or if you had to run, like just imagine. Like, well, imagining doesn't do shit for training. I can imagine myself. Go ahead, like doing the high jump all day long, but it's not going to prepare me for the high jump. Like you actually have to get boots on the ground. So what is your real mark? I think you wanted to jump in there.
I think too, like, you alluded to the fact, like how often, let's say, is somebody actually training outside, and you say, oh yeah, like once, twice a year, whatever. But it's like the slip and fall example that we witnessed recently. It's like, it's one thing to train falling, but that's like simulated, and that's good. And you should do that. You should train. Like, okay, I get knocked down, I slip, I fall, and then you got to practice what tactic you roll into. Mm-hmm. But you also have to experience slipping and falling and then just continuing to do whatever it is you're doing, even if it's not related to slipping and falling. Yeah. But I think that's sometimes what people are missing. Like, I think most people are missing what you said. They just don't train it. But then even when they do train it, they're still training it in like the more sterile way. Yeah. And that's good, and you do need it. But it's like, but you also just need to literally have a mistake, slip, fall, but the drill carries on, or the sparring session, whatever it is. And I think so often, as we've seen so many times, people think that that's like a stop. That's a time to stop. Like, oh, I fell, I'll stop. He'll stop. Like, we teach people from day one, like, if you fall, you keep going. Like, the feed doesn't stop. It keeps going. You learn very quickly that combat doesn't stop because of an accident or a mistake or whatever. And I think, so people just, they sterilize even when they're trying to train something non-sterile.
Yeah. Well, if you look at flying, we obviously, we both know individuals that have achieved their pilot's license and are pilots and flying and all that type of stuff. But one of the things they do just in fairly early on in their flight training is, a stall, doing controlled stalls. So obviously you take the plane up, you stall the plane out, and the plane wants to turn into a spin. And you have to obviously then get control of the spin, get control of the aircraft, get the engine restarted, just get everything back on. So what they're doing is saying, okay, you're flying, everything's great, but now we're going to simulate what happens if the engine shuts out, the plane, what happens when the engine stalls out, what happens when the plane wants to start going into a spin, and you're dealing with all of the different factors. Obviously, you got gravity, you got your, spin velocities and rates, and you've got, there's just way more than what I understand about it, but I'm just saying there's a lot of factors into that, but there's a process for how you work through that. But the point is, they're putting them into a certain amount of organized chaos. They're having organized fuck-ups. Most people in training that we see, they train a fuck up, but they stylize the fuck up. They turn it into a mark. So again, it's like, so normally I do this, but the guy got a hold of this, now he's over here, that's a really bad position, and now you're going to start from there. Let me show you from this. I'd access my knife this way, I'd take control of the arm here, tilting the elbow this way. Like, so they're working what they consider to be a fuck up, but they just created it as a mark. So that mark allows you to get set. So it's always on your mark, get set, and go. On your mark, get set, and go. And life factor
just becomes
moments.
Another boulder.
Yeah, exactly. 100 becomes another boulder, something they're collecting. It becomes techniques. If this fucks up, do this technique. But without having done that, like in terms of the flying, I've never had to purposely stall out the plane and then let the plane get into a spin and recover it and then restart the engines and all that type of stuff. But in our training, I mean, this is what Paul and Tom, this is what my instructors, this is what they were fucking famous for, was using training methodologies that forced organic chaos. So you would start the drill, but the drill itself, by its very design, deteriorated. It's like uncontrollable, it's unrecoverable, and once it deteriorated, something organic happened, and it was always, it was always toxic or corrosive or septic in some way, shape, or form. It always fucked your game up. But it's like all of a sudden, it's like again being put in it like like a gyro where you're just being spun, or getting hit by a wave, and you're just being tossed so that you don't even know which direction's up, and then all of a sudden you got to get smart enough to blow a little air out and watch the bubbles, like finding some sort of order out of chaos. And I find that when you actually, I think one of the biggest reasons why this on your mark, get set, fail kind of culture exists is two reasons. One is because it's so much easier to build a curriculum off of boulders, like just take everything and turn everything into a technique, turn every fuck up, turn every bad angle, turn every possible, challenging situation and turn it into a technique to learn, techniques to counter that. Like the thought process is, if you learn the technique to counter this, you'll never experience chaos and anarchy and uncertainty and all that natural organic life factor bullshit that comes with slips and trips and all kinds of, fucked up shit. But that actually doesn't do that, because you cannot conceivably technically prepare for every single fucking, organic thing. So in training, you actually have to learn how to get people off the mark so that they can get set and go. You know what I mean? Otherwise, if it's always on the mark, get set, that will lead to failure, because it combat, that's the fog of war. That's just the realities of fucking combat. And again, you slip, trip, something toxic, corrosive, or septic happens, and you are just completely out of whack from any mark that you've ever been trained in, and you've never been in that, you've never been under the water, just getting bounced off the reef and thrashed from the current of the wave, at the mercy of that type of chaotic feeling. So you don't know how to think that through. You don't know how to make tactical decisions in the fog of war, right? And that's what a lot of people are missing. Okay, so I don't know if you have any of just, I know it's putting you on the spot a bit, but the thought process over the years of some of those moments that you remember, falling into that chaos, and then, being able to think your way through it, make good tactical decisions to follow the bubbles back up to the surface to get that breath of air. But that's what I want people to. And again, to understand this, you have to be training. And it's tough if you're training in a sterilized environment that's hygienic and always is providing certainty and clarity of technique and shit like that, because that's just a different approach, right? So I'm not sure if something pops to mind right off the bat or not, but.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I'd have to sit and really think back to it. I mean, everybody's had the slip and fall, like how many
Yeah,
times?
yeah,
So many times,
yeah.
because of the nature of the way we train. And that's
Mhm.
both in our regular, more classical type training versus like even the full on force scenario training. Like a lot of times the conditions look the same in both of
Yeah,
those. There's
yeah.
gravel, there's wet grass, all that stuff. So I mean,
Mhm.
I've had so many times when I've slipped, fell, and had to just drive on and keep going.
So
Um,
in that moment of a slip or a fall or a thing, or, any type of fuck up like that, what is your thought process? Like, what does your self talk do, or what goes through your mind in the moment of that, where you're like, okay, this is all off script, this is off baseline,
yeah.
none of this is what I
Well,
strategically and
so
tactically want to do.
yeah, so interesting because I think it's like I'll start by telling you what's not there. When there's a slip and fall, there's never a oh shit or oh no. Like, do you know what I mean? Because that's just normal. I don't want to be there. It's the last place I want to be is on the ground. But when you expose yourself to that in the very, very beginning, and it's always woven into the potential for it is woven into every single drill, every single sparring session, every single scenario. When that option of a slip, fall, a trip, and you might trip over a curb. You might get tripped by someone watching, someone in the environment. Like who knows, right? So when that's always on the table, there's no shock to that. There's no
Yeah.
surprise. And when you're half expecting that that might happen, it's just literally it's mission demands, mission commands. I fall, I hit the ground, my brain goes to like get back up. That is the self-talk. Get back up. You don't want to be here. It's the last place I want to be. Get back up. And right away you're just going to work. It's just right to work. It's like punch in and go to work. Like you got to get back to your feet now. Maybe you can't get up right away. Maybe they jump on you. Maybe there's two of them. Doesn't matter. It's like, well, then you're kicking into your ground combatives. Like, so it's always just the mission demands, mission commands. So your self talk is exactly what happens. But that's getting programmed from the second you start training.
Yeah. See, that's exactly what I wanted people to hear. So thank you for saying that. In the moment, like, and again, this is going to be very easy for people to gloss over. But when you slip, like, I mean, like, I can see it because it's happened to me, it's happened to you. I've seen it happen to people so many times. It's just normal. And our training creates this. But everyone can imagine you got, let's say, even two guys like coming at you. Guys got a baseball bat, other guys coming at you, just empty hands, whatever. But these guys are blitzing you. So just in training. But all of a sudden, the guy that's moving, who, you're looking at the guy and you see him as like, okay, he's aware, his head's on a swivel, he's moving. And all of a sudden, he goes to push off the line. He's trying to fracture the line. So he's changing the angulation. And his foot that he goes to push off with slides out. And you got this guy in a 3/4 split. Everybody's seen somebody do that. Everyone's done that. You go to push off and it's like, "Ugh!" Like you literally, your legs come out. Now, you don't fully hit the ground. And you hope in that moment you're fairly flexible because you're literally in a 3/4 split. The only thing that potentially saved you from actually going into the full splits is either muscles that are on the verge of ripping or super fucking tight jeans. I don't know. You know what I mean? That I don't wear the tight jeans, so they've never saved me. And unfortunately, I have good flexibility, so I tend to go a lot farther than what I'd ever want to go. But the point is, in that moment where that is clearly, you're like, oh fuck, that's an oh fuck moment. And yet there is no oh fuck. Like your brain just doesn't go oh fuck. Like if people can, I know that's such a simple thing, but if people can go like that didn't like, because even if it doesn't surprise you, how is that not an oh fuck or oh shit moment? Because you're vulnerable. Like these guys are attacking. And if you're caught in a moment where you go, your mobility, like, well, the reason it doesn't, it's the reason it's not an oh shit moment is because of experience. Because like we've been there, done that. It's fucking normal. I'm not saying it's normal like that's what you're trying to create and have happen. I'm saying that when you actually train in real world environments, I mean, isn't this a shocker? When you train on loose gravel, when you train on wet or icy ground, when you train on uneven surfaces, when you train in those types of environments, you slip. And you don't slip the odd time, you slip a lot of the time. And so your footwork learns to adapt. Your balance changes. Like, imagine if all I ever did was I took a skateboard, unscrewed the wheels, unscrewed the tracks, the trucks, and I set the board on the ground and I just stood on it on the sidewalk. You know what I mean? And then pretended to learn how to skateboard. Well, the second you put the wheels on that thing, it's going to be a little different to stand on. I can probably still do it, I'm sure. But the second that the board has the wheels and now you're going down something, and now that something has bumps or wet or whatever, like you don't have a fucking clue. Like learning to balance on matted, padded, solid ground is totally fucking different. I always get people that are like, they train on matted surfaces, barefoot on matted surfaces. And then it's like they put their shoes on and think that it's going to be no different. But shoes are very, very different. If you train with a cross trainer versus training with a running shoe, you'll know the difference. How many guys have we seen roll fucking ankles because they're wearing running shoes and start trying to move lateral? A running shoe has zero lateral support. It's not meant for lateral movement. And that's if you're doing it on a flat surface, you might be okay. But the second you start train changing, those shoes are going to catch like a motherfucker. You're going to roll your ankle and you're going to be down. And if you've never felt that before, you're going to have an oh shit moment. But if you've trained that, just in certain things like this, in the environment, the mark is never the fucking same because the environment changes day to day. How nice does it feel when you're out in a real world environment, you didn't do anything to it, but Mother Nature has presented you with really good traction? Like the grass is dry, the concrete is dry, the street cleaners have been around, like it's just manicured lawns. It's like just, it's fucking nice. And like everything grips and your footwork is different. You base out differently. You carve those angles way harder. Then the second, you're outside, you can smell it in the air when there's moisture in the air and you balance differently. You shorten your stride. You don't push the same way. You don't cut on the edge of your foot the same way that you do when shit is dry. This is no different than Formula One car drivers, hitting the track and them asking, how's the car feel? You have to be able to understand the language. It's loose. It feels loose. I've got no grip. It's like whatever it is. They have a language that describes how the car is performing in relation to the track, the weather conditions, all the the driver, all of that type of stuff. And that's what I want people to understand. Is your training has to fuck up your mark. And then it's like, and there's a saying for that. So not only is it if it happens, and it happened, that's just part of it. You just inoculate to that. There's no oh shit or oh fuck because it's just fucking normal. So, oh shit moments are not normal moments. That's why they're oh shit moments. And people got to get that. The second thing is that we preach and live by a concept called combat accuracy, which is exactly what we're talking about. Combat accuracy, there's a saying that in the shooting community that bullets don't work, so keep shooting till you find one that does. What does that mean? It means bullets don't work. It means you can shoot a round off, you can hit a guy, or you can miss a guy. And if you miss the guy, or you hit the guy, the fucker can still keep coming. And you're like, well, shit, that bullet didn't work. Okay, shoot another one. And that bullet might work, but it might work 3 minutes from now. It's not working in the manner you expected it to work. Say, I hit that guy's supposed to drop down and play dead. Never mind play dead, he should be dead. But it doesn't work that way always. Bullets don't work. Keep shooting, you find one that does. So it's the same thing, man. Footwork doesn't work. So keep moving till you find pieces of footwork that do work, meaning you're set up for the slip. It's like that's what's going to happen. We don't have a mark. So for every tool, for every strategy, for every tactical decision, for everything that we're doing, it's always, well, this shit doesn't work. So you just keep shooting till you find something that does, meaning just keep reapplying. Just do it again, do it again, do it again, because that's the mortar that actually turns, a bunch of bricks into a functional sidewalk that you can use. So yeah, it's learning to regulate the self-talk through experience, learning to have a realistic perception. Again, most guys why are most training centers matted? Is it to prevent injury? What's that?
Oh, yeah, I mean that's part of it, but it's for comfort because they're running a business.
Yes.
If your customers are constantly running into problems or getting hurt and falling down and complaining and you know what I mean, that you're not going to be very successful in your business if that's what your priority is success and all that stuff. Like again, it comes back to what are your priorities? Why are you actually training?
Yeah. And the other thing is those mats get a really good grip. Barefoot on the mats get a great grip. Barefoot on a wrestling mat with a wrestling shoe get a really good grip. They protect the feet from damage. Do you know what I mean? But you get a tight grip. I mean, just doing jiu-jitsu with socks on your feet is different than doing jiu-jitsu without socks on your feet. Because once those you're slipping, you don't have the same push when you got socks on your feet. Do you know what I mean? But that could be a great training methodology to change the mark. So a guy that's used to being on the ground and doing an upa or doing a bridge and really being able to dig his feet into the mat and get lots of stick and therefore generate a lot of upward force, that's a comfort that you get used to. And if it's there, use it. And if it's not, you need to be familiar with that as well. I mean, very simple little example, but that is, everything is designed in the environment to make things safer, more comfortable, and more proficient. Okay, if you got guys doing a lot of high kicks, if somebody's sweating a lot in the mat, they'll stop, they'll get out there, they'll dry the mat off. That way the guy continue to perform his high kicks, has great traction, nobody's going to land on a little bit of sweat and, a foot slides out or a knee buckles because of this unsafe environment. You clean up the mess, you protect, you ensure that you can actually execute your art to the highest level. Okay, and again, for competition and combat, for competition, great. Right? But for combat, unrealistic. It's just consistently setting a mark that you actually need so that you are set, so that then you can go. But the second you get into combat, it's on, if you're off your mark, you get set, but you get set to fail. Right? So, okay. Yeah, it's a simple enough concept, but I think it's important that people understand this. So, what's the takeaway? Get the fuck outside. Do you know what I mean? Get the fuck outside. My opinion, if you're talking about real self-defense, you should be training on concrete all the time. Yes, even for your ground fighting. I'm not saying you can't use mats. We train on concrete all the time. We use mats when we do certain ground stuff as you're developing and practicing.
But
And then you
to
take
be
the mats
fair,
away. Yeah, go ahead.
our mats are very old and crushed.
Yeah, yeah. Some
They're
say it's
not
more
super
like
comfortable.
some say it's not matted concrete. It's like covered concrete with yeah.
Yeah.
If you roll over, if you get flipped, you go hard. You feel the concrete. So that is fair, but it is enough to prevent injury.
Exactly.
It does hurt, but again, it grounds you in the realities of what you're doing. And you do have to, I mean, we've done over the years, ground fighting in the snow, and I'm not talking the white fluffy stuff, the dirty, slushy, shit knocked off the bottom of a car, gravel, fucking salt, get out and roll in that shit. Do you know what I mean? And people don't like doing that. People hate doing that. And it's extremely fucking different. Just like, going outside in sub temperatures, minus 30, minus 25, like those are beautiful days for outdoor training. And people are like, no, everything sucks. Everything's harder. Yeah, nothing works the same. Yeah. Vehicles don't like to run at minus 30. Well, how do you think human performance operates at minus 30? Unless you acclimate. Yeah,
This
exactly.
this is a slightly different angle, but on that note, because it made me think of it, it's like, it's also, even if you look at like, well, what are you training in? What are you wearing?
Yeah.
Like, do you always wear your most athletic shoe? Do you always wear a pair of comfortable shorts, a t-shirt? Do you wear a gi? Like, I don't know what people are training in.
Yeah.
It's like, but do you ever train in like your skinny jeans? If you have those, or you know what I mean? Or like, maybe you like cowboy boots. I don't know, but like, do you switch that stuff up just to
Yeah.
be used to what it's like? Like, try moving around in cowboy boots. I don't have cowboy boots, but I bet you it's a very different experience
Yeah.
than
I
moving
had a
around in
client,
regular
you know him.
shoes or
Yeah. I had a client that
that's
all
right.
he wore
Yeah, it came
every
every
time. He
time.
wore cowboy boots every time
Yeah.
to train.
And at first you're kind of like, oh shit, like that's kind of crazy. But then there's a party that's like, yeah, man, good for you. If that's what you wear, that's what you should show
That's
up
what he
in.
wears all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, and then winter jackets or any jacket, hoodies, like have somebody grab your hoodie, like your hood on your hoodie
Yeah,
and
yeah.
drag you around by that a little bit. Like if
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
never experienced that, you don't want the first time to be in violence. Like, do you know what I mean? So no different than the
yeah.
ground. Clothing is a big thing that I think people just is not on their radar. They don't even realize that a bulky coat, someone can grab and twist and have such a grip on that coat. Like that can be a nightmare. Attachments are a nightmare, but that's a hard one to break. If you don't have the strategies and tactics to deal with that kind of an attachment, you're in trouble.
See, and let me just circle back to your analogy of the hoodie, because I think maybe potentially, I was going to say a lot of people have probably that train in whatever various combative sports or arts have probably at some point wrestled around with a hoodie on or had somebody grab their hoodie. But I have to check that because it's probably actually fairly low. Like if it's 15 to 20% of the people, I'd actually probably be shocked. So that's really, really low. But I would also bet that if you even go down to probably less than 1% of individuals that have their hoodie on, because people just don't train in hoodies. Like they have a hoodie on when they come to class, they take it off, they change into whatever their gear is, and then they have a hoodie on after class, and maybe in a class one time, you know, like one time out of however many years, they did some work on somebody grabbing the hoodie. And you know what they did? Say, okay, guy gets a hold of your hoodie, he's got it all balled up, just like they do with hair grabs. Then they stop it, they stylize it, they create a mark. Okay, when he's got your hair, your hand goes here, they do this, they got you by the hoodie, they do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. They stylize it. And they go, okay, now we solve the problem of a hoodie grab. And then it's like you can spend 5 hours working on a hoodie grab. And then at the end of it, everybody takes off the old hoodie that they wore for training class because, you know, that way if it gets ripped or wrecked or whatever, or stretched out, they're okay with that. And then as everybody's finishing and they do their group photo at the end of the seminar and everyone's getting ready to leave and they all go in and change or shower and everyone's going to go out for supper and you see guys coming out in their nice brand new hoodies, grab that fucking hoodie and start ripping that motherfucker around. Start flailing around like a fucking ragdoll. And you know it won't come out? Anything that you just worked over the last 5 hours will not come out. And then I love it because people goes, oh yeah, but that's because you wasn't ready for it. Yeah, that's the fucking point. That's the fucking point. No, I mean, he wasn't ready for it. He got him from behind. That wasn't fair. We didn't cover that in class. Yeah, that's the fucking point. Like you're off your fucking mark. So off your mark, get set, fail. Right? That's what I'm fucking talking about. And it's like, you know, it's again, how does a guy who is very fucking high level in jiu-jitsu have a natural slip trip in natural environments and then roll around and not get to a ground get up? Like, and the answer is very simple. Because he's never been forced to do it out of a slip, trip, or fall. The multiple stressors. The guy can do a ground get up. The guy can do a ground get up. No fucking problem. He understands it. He can get it. He can fucking do it at a high world-class level. But when there's a natural slip or trip, a life factor moment, it's chaotic. It's fucked up. Your brain goes into like, oh, whenever I fall, protect your clothes, protect your knees, don't get scraped up. So you're trying to land in such a manner to not get hurt, to not get too dirty, to not get whatever. And people can sit there and go, oh, who gives a fuck about getting dirty and getting wet and if you're in a goddamn fight? Because that's what happens when you fall. Just like, what do you think you do when you drop your phone? What are your reflexes that have been conditioned when you drop your phone? Yet you could tell a guy the same thing. Oh, in a violent assault, fuck your phone. I got a video of a guy who got stabbed to death because as he was holding his phone, he got attacked. The guy started stabbing him, and he took the time to try to get his phone in his pocket while he's being stabbed. He didn't just drop the phone. He could have used the phone to smack the guy in the face. Once he got his phone in his pocket, which took him about 20 fucking seconds, stabbed 7 or 8 times, he literally grabbed the guy, hit the guy, basically knocked the guy down, got the knife away from the guy, but then he went on to die a few minutes later because he'd been punctured 7 times. If he would have just dropped the fucking phone, he clearly had the skill set to beat the fuck out of the guy. The guy didn't know what he was doing with the knife, but the other guy was so conditioned reflexively, he was off the mark. Because we don't ever train, when you hold your phone, if something bad happens, drop your fucking phone. Now people are so conditioned, if something bad happens, start recording. You get how many videos of people literally recording themselves being murdered? Because that's what their mark is. Mm-hmm. Oh shit! Oh, something's happened. On your mark, get set, film. And that's what they fucking do. And people think it's not a real thing. People think it's easy. You just intellectually tell people, hey, just so you know, obviously, drop your phone in a crisis or hit him with it or throw your phone at him or whatever. But don't take the fucking time to put it in your pocket. People, if you want, go back and watch the videos of the shootings back at Columbine. And watch the kids as they're hiding under the table, 2 gunmen inside the cafeteria shooting other students. And the one student who's hiding under the table, and only 2 tables away, the gunmen look underneath the table, see somebody and execute him. And then they're moving towards his table, and he jumps out from underneath his table and he fucking runs down the hallway. And they're literally laughing because he took off running. They're laughing how he ran off like a rabbit. And they turn away to go to the next group of kids. And all of a sudden, you see the guy running back in, slides under the table, grabs his backpack, and then runs out again. And they start laughing twice as hard. They could have killed him, but they were too busy fucking laughing. But the kid came back for his backpack. Why? Because that's his mark. right? When you leave class, if you forget your backpack, you go back and get it. When you leave class, you take your backpack with you. Like, there was no survivable value in that fucking backpack, and it almost cost him his life. There's the same thing of people in office buildings during shootings who have been killed because they went back to their office because they forgot to shut down their computer, and that was their routine. That was their mark. And so in training, I'm just going to tie this back to the word filler. When you're training individuals, you create routines that have nothing to do with combat. That's filler. That's why I'm adamantly opposed against when you're doing certain drills and training methodologies, you don't shake hands, you don't bump gloves, you don't even acknowledge each other in that way at all, because that creates filler. You don't line up center line to center line. You never, like, there's just so many little things that you do not want to habituate inside of people, because that becomes filler and it becomes subconscious programming. And whether they want to or not, they will do this thing. That will be their operating system. Especially the more they train, the more those things get programmed, the deeper they are in your subconscious, the more likely they come out. Under stress and pressure, when people are like feeling chaotic and uncertain, they fall back to things that give them certainty. They fall back to routines. I got a picture of I got a video, CCTV video footage of a machete assault. There's two guys with machetes versus two guys with no machetes. There's a whole group of kids standing around, but it's basically a 2-on-2 type situation. And the first poor kid without the machete has his throat sliced in the first 3 seconds, and he's dying. And his other buddy is a Taekwondo guy. You can see it very clearly. The guy with the machete attacks him. He uses, very successfully, I might add, he reflexively, as the guy rushes him with the machete after just witnessing his friend get his throat basically almost decapitated, he throws 3 or 4 Taekwondo kicks that literally stun the attacker. They knock him back each time. Matter of fact, the 4th kick hits the attacker and sends the machete flying 30 fucking feet away from them. And now so the attacker runs to get the machete. Our Taekwondo practitioner is standing there. When the guy grabs the machete, there's now about 30 feet of space between them. And what does the Taekwondo artist do? Fingers grab his pant legs. He pulls his pant legs up as if they're his gi pants. He gets down in his little stance and he starts moving towards the attacker. He literally starts sparring, like you can tell he has done hundreds, if not thousands of times in class. There is fields and trees and everything. He could have been a half a kilometer away by the time that guy got that machete. But instead, his programming, his mark, when the guy was 30 feet away, grabbed the machete and faced him center line to center line, it kicked into the mark. He pulled his little pants up, got in his little Taekwondo stance, get set, started to move towards the guy, and go. Threw another Taekwondo kick, this time not defensively in a retreat that startled the bad guy. He threw it in an attack Taekwondo sparring methodology. The guy hit the machete attack right on the back of his knee. His foot came down to touch the ground to prep for another kick. Of course, there's no more ligaments. And the guy hits the ground. And by this time, the second machete attacker were both on top of him. And he's rolling around on the fucking ground like roly-poly-oly, getting machete slashed in his back and everywhere else, his head. You know, and that's the end of him. So it's like, why do these things happen? Because that's the mark.
And you've said it how many times? Be careful what you practice. You might get good at the wrong thing. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what you're talking about right now.
Yep. And I want to even, we are not talking tonight about the bricks. We're not talking about the main things. We're talking about the filler. Really understand what the mark is, what we mean when we say on your mark. Because it's all of the stylized, sterilized, hygienic bullshit that surrounds, that happens before a drill, often during the drill, and after the drill. It is just so fucking unrealistic. It's just filler. It adds nothing. It adds nothing to anything other than setting up oh shit, oh fuck moments. Right? That'll get you killed. Period. Like, that's it. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. Interesting anyhow. Hopefully people can follow along with what we're talking about and make sure that in your training, get the fuck outside. Start breaking things up. Don't stylize things. Don't formalize things. Don't make things hygienic. Don't keep things fucking sterile. Yes, there's times when you're learning things where things are going to have organization to them. Things are going to have structure to them. Things are going to be slightly more sterile in a way, but that is because you are learning. Understand the 5 cycles you're progressing through. You learn, you practice, you master, then you functionalize and maintain. Mastery is not what people think. It doesn't mean perfection. Most people don't understand the practice phase. They barely understand the learn phase. It's learn, practice, master, functionalize. In each step of that, from learn to practice, you have to start changing the mark. The way you train is the way you fight. You cannot wait until functionalism to start getting some toxic, corrosive life factor moments happening. You got to learn and then introduce them instantaneously. Many of the times we're doing that right as we're teaching it, because then it's normal. They don't know it any other way. I mean, learn how to dance on a ship that rocks side to side. You know what I mean? If you learn how to dance on something that's moving side to side consistently from day one, and you just learn how to move in conjunction with the movement, you know what I mean? The motion of the ocean kind of thing, you're going to that's normal to you. You're going to be a fucked up dancer when it comes to to dancing on drawn land, because you're just so used to something that is so different. So learn in toxic, corrosive, septic environments. And it's way more fucking fun. It's way more fucking fun. Sterile, hygienic shit sucks. It's fucking boring. Who doesn't want to be out moving around on gravel and grass and fucking terrain and curbs and fucking concrete and all kinds of shit like that? It's just fucking way more fun, right? So, anyways, that's where we'll probably land our plane for tonight. Thank you, Dustin, as usual. I appreciate you, man, and your time. Brad might not. I think Brad's still out for a couple weeks, but we'll see him back in a bit. And I think that's it. So, any other final thoughts for you?
No, man, I'm good.
Okay, yes, you are. I agree with that. Okay, that is it, everybody. Thank you so much. We appreciate you for listening in. We are, again, super busy, but we're going to try to really get back to some consistency every Thursday at 7:30. That is our goal, to be live and bringing new podcasts to you guys. So sorry for the last little bit. It's been sporadic, but the primary mission is to weaponize new good men. And the busier we get, the more we have. I mean, we're going to spend our time training people and moving the needle for people. That's what's real important to us. But we love doing this, so we will do our best to keep consistent content coming your way. All right, everybody, thanks so much. Stay safe, stay weaponized. Chat again soon, everybody. Take care.